Hello again, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to the Reconstructing History podcast and vlog. I am Bob,
I'm Cass.
and we do this, every week?
Yep.
As
Every
regularly as
Monday.
clockwork is when clockwork breaks periodically, but we try to keep up. Um,
I think we've been keeping up since November,
yeah, I
maybe?
guess we have, haven't we?
November at least. December at least.
Well, I
Yeah.
think it is a plus of me being across an ocean away from you that, we look forward to seeing one
Oh,
another.
yes. I was gonna say it's a plus. What? What?
Well, we miss each other, so we like to get together and talk. And if
Yeah.
we're going to get together and talk, we might as well record it. I mean, you won't have to listen to all of our soppy "oh boo 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 I miss you" bullshit, dear listeners. But you know,
Yeah. I got to tell you, it's hard as hell for me to be here right now because it is sunny and 65 degrees outside, and I just came in. I just came in. I just walked to the next town. I walked 6.5 kilometers, which is like how much is that? More than 4 miles.
I'm just
More than
judging you. I'm judging.
oh,
I'm
just okay,
making a
judge me.
face. This is my judgy
And
face.
and yeah, and everybody's out, the bicycles and scooters and horses and dogs and convertibles. There's so many convertibles out today. I'm just like, I'm gonna go wash my car and go out. Hell with you
Nice,
people.
nice. Well,
I'm just
it's a little over 20 Fahrenheit here, and it's gray.
Yeah, I mean, really, for the last week, it hasn't gone above zero, at zero being freezing.
Yeah,
And so for the last week, we've been snowed in, frozen in, and sliding around on the ice and everything. And then one day it rained. It broke 50. And now the sun's back and it's 65 and it's spring again. So, I feel like we suffered and we deserve this.
I'm sure you'll cut in pictures of daffodils and crocuses and stuff that you've taken on your walks at this point in
Yeah,
the video.
I have pictures of ponies. I
Uh,
have pictures of two girls. Remember the paint horses that
yeah.
were on the bike path? The two girls on the paint horses were having a lesson
Oh.
in in the pasture where the shower bastards used to be.
Oh, okay.
And I took a little video of them, and there was a single bastard. Not today. Yesterday, I had my physio appointment. I drove past, and in just the corner of that field, just between the ditch and that building,
Yeah.
there's a little space that's cordoned off, and there was a single bastard
Just a
there,
solitary bastard.
a solitary bastard. But he wasn't there today.
Uh,
And the girls were in the field getting a riding lesson, somebody on the ground, and them trotting
huh.
around
Oh,
in
good.
circles.
Beautiful day for
Which,
it.
yeah, it's a horrible pasture though. It has all like molehills in it. So it's
Oh, yeah.
it's not really great for having a lesson, because there's so much unsure footing. But I suppose for the little tiny ponies, it doesn't matter. Um, but yeah, so that was a thing. And then I took a picture. I will drop a picture in of the donkeys, the little donkeys that
Yeah.
I took a picture of the other week. The two little bastards who were missing from that pasture are now in with the donkeys.
Oh, okay.
So there are three donkeys and the two little ponies.
This is how we keep
And
track of our neighbors, friends. We don't know our
yeah,
neighbors' names, but we know who has horses, what the horses' names are, what the dogs' names are.
yeah, I don't know the horses and the dogs' names yet, but I'm kind of getting the idea. Okay, and then when I walked back, the two horses that had the lesson were in a field across the street. So I'm like, okay, that one and that one belong to the same people because
Right.
they're
Yeah,
the same
you often see
horses.
them riding on the bike paths, right?
I see them riding on the bike paths,
Yeah.
and I saw them having a lesson in one pasture, and then I saw them resting in another pasture, which I've seen them in that pasture
Right,
before.
right.
And there are a shocking amount of very shaggy, very dark brown and white small horses. They're not quite ponies. They're like in between ponies and horses, like ponies that an adult could ride.
Right, right.
There's 4 of them just in the walk I took. There's the 2 that the girls were on. There's
Right.
another one, in the field. And then I think there's 1 or 2 in a far pasture that you can see from the bike path.
Yeah, the pictures of them that you've sent me, they look like
Yeah.
Welsh cobs to me. But
Yeah, I don't know if Welsh cobs are ever paints.
I
I don't know.
think they are. I think that's one of the hallmarks of the breed.
I think Welsh cobs are black.
Oh, well, all right. There you go.
I don't know.
I don't know. I want a
Yeah,
mule.
comment. Tell us.
I want
You
to-
want to be
I want a mule.
Italian mules and not the
Yes.
shoes.
Italian mules, yeah, not the shoes, but big long ears.
You didn't see the podcast you were talking about mules, did you?
No.
Did you watch the YouTube video? Because
yes,
I dropped
yes,
in,
yeah.
I dropped in a pair of shoes and then I dropped in a picture of a mule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Because
it's
the fact
I went down quite a rabbit hole the other day about mules and how they need to have different tack. They need to, but they're very sure-footed and they're very eager to please. And
they're very easy to please. They're stubborn bastards.
when you train them.
When you train them,
yeah,
they're still stubborn.
Anyway, we should probably, talk about something other than blithering about ponies.
Isn't that what our podcast is about? Us blithering?
Yeah, I suppose it is.
I haven't seen any camels. I haven't seen I haven't seen alpacas. There are no alpacas here in town. There are no llamas.
That's weird. Plenty of horses, plenty of horse flesh, plenty of sheep.
Yeah, but there's not sheep right here.
Right.
Like right where I walk.
Right. But horses out the window.
No, there are sheep. There are sheep where I walk. There's sheep in that one field that there are ponies behind it.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And goats. But no, there's no alpacas, which is throwing me off because there are alpacas all over Earsall.
Yeah.
Like there was an explosion of alpacas. So.
Is that the collective noun, an explosion of alpacas?
Yeah. Something like that.
A burst of alpacas.
A poof. I think a poof is very fitting. A poof of alpacas. When they get their hair.
When they get that yearly clip.
When it goes like that. When they look like me when I've just got my hair cut.
Right.
But speaking of haircuts,
with lockdowns, for us it's annual too. Apparently, I mean, look at me.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry, podcast listeners, but you'll have to go to YouTube for that shot. No, you don't want to go to YouTube for that shot.
No, you really don't.
Insert
really
Morgan Freeman voice. They did not wish to go to YouTube for that shot.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, it's a thing. So what's on the agenda for us to chat about today that people might find actually interesting?
Well, I was thinking about, last time we talked about how I started RH and how I got into this and everything like that. And this led me to think about, well, somebody asked me, well, why didn't you go into academia? Why aren't you the curator of a textile museum? Why didn't you go that route? And it's a good question.
Yeah, it is.
It's a good question.
I presume you've thought about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not a hard question to answer because there's a very direct answer, and that's that no one was offering a program in what I wanted to study when I wanted to study it.
Right.
In the 90s, when I discovered historical clothing, no one was talking about it. And I mean, this is, the School of Historic Dress hadn't gotten together yet. All of Janet Arnold's works were out of print.
Right.
I mean, the explosion of like what we have now, now you can take these academic programs, really that all came out of Janet Arnold's study. And, the fashion and detail books
Right, right.
that Victoria and Albert Museum put out and how successful they were. This is before that. This is before any of that happens. And like I said, Patterns of Fashion was out of print. Patterns of Fashion came out in what, 84 or 88?
Beats
And
me.
yeah, by the time I got interested, it was out of print.
Right.
And you had to track down,
I remember you
a
scouring ABE books for
oh
used
yeah,
copies of stuff.
yeah, but it wasn't even that. I was doing things like going to the free library in Philadelphia
Oh yeah, yeah.
and making copies of the page, the relevant
Yeah,
pages,
yeah.
and just, using them until the copy print rubbed off. Um,
I
and
remember
then,
I remember the document protectors
yeah, I
that
had everything document protectors,
and I
yeah.
remember trying to pull sheets out of the document protectors and the laser ink stuff came
This stuff.
off
Yep,
on
yep,
we basically had a transparency.
yeah. And then I didn't just rip off Janet Arnold's work once Patterns of Fashion and Queen Elizabeth's Wardrobe Unlocked and all of those manual of
So
costume.
you bought them multiple times.
I bought them when they came back into print, but this was that kind of limbo
Yeah,
between first printing and when the historical costume community discovered her again.
right, right.
Before her death. I hope she knew how popular she got before she died. I was seeking an academic program because what do you think? You want to study textiles in a museum, so you become a museum person.
Right.
And I remember talking to Mairead Dunleavy
Mhm.
at National Museum of Ireland, and I talked to her about it, and she said, "Well, I'm a ceramics expert, and I'm not a textile expert. I'm a ceramics expert, and I'm the curator of textiles, ceramics, and glass." And that's what happens because museums don't have large textile collections. Textiles are very hard to protect. They're even harder to display. So she told me museums don't do this. So there aren't academic programs in becoming a textile curator because no one is going to hire you. No museum wants you. And that changed very shortly afterwards. But when I was asking the question, the answer was there's no route.
Right,
And at the time, I was working on master's degree in communication studies.
right,
And I had applied for this PhD program at the Annenberg School in Philadelphia. Um, And basically, my PhD thesis was going to be about communication through textiles,
right.
communication through the cultural artifact of clothing. And that was 1996, and we had that enormous snowstorm where there were 39 inches of snow
I
fell
remember
in
that. Yeah.
24 hours or something. Weren't you part of the National Guard who
Yeah.
were like keeping people out and
Yeah, that
stuff?
was after my active service. I was in the National Guard and I
Mhm.
remember, yeah, I had to walk from my parents' house to the mustering point, which is uh about 5 kilometers not as the crow flies because that would mean going up and over a ridge. It's only about
Yeah.
2 km as the crow flies, but yeah, I had to basically put all my gear on in my pack, in my bug out pack that I kept at the house. And
Wow.
yeah, and we were at the armory for I think 5 days because
Wow.
nothing was moving. The governor locked the state down.
Well, that's
That's when I
I had
discovered that Humvees do not have anti-lock brakes.
oh, wow, that's nice.
Yeah,
Um,
sorry.
that was the previous year I had applied to the program and I got waitlisted. And the program is very small. Like they only accept like 10 people 12 people a year, but everyone they accept, they fully fund.
Right.
So no one pays for it. You can't, if you're accepted, you're funded. And I needed that because I didn't have anybody who was going to pay for my schooling. And so I got waitlisted, and they told me, you've been waitlisted this year. If you still want this, apply next year, because our policy is if someone who's on the wait list reapplies the following year, they're at the top of our list. So I reapplied thinking I was a shoo-in, and my application got lost in the snowstorm.
Oh.
Yep. And there was no way of knowing. They had no way of knowing that I'd applied because
Right. They
it
had no
wasn't
record of it.
No, and it wasn't like now, where you have an electronic record of the application. It was a hard copy application, and they didn't know that they didn't know that I sent it.
And you couldn't prove. Yeah.
And it didn't matter,
Yeah.
So that was a big heartbreak for me. But it was also, it was the year I got divorced. So it was kind of like everything was all up in the air. I mean, it would have been terrific. You leave this life and go to academia. And but ultimately I wasn't going into an academic program to study historic textiles. I was going into an academic program to discuss and debate human communication and cultural artifacts of human communication. So
Right.
it was related. It was getting to talk about what I wanted to talk about somehow.
Yeah. The material culture and its impact on society.
Yeah. But at the time, there was you couldn't just go to, University of Pennsylvania and study textiles.
And it still surprises me that there are, graduate programs. Okay, I can dig it. But are there undergrad programs for that kind of thing? Like curation? Something about museum curation, certainly, because we know people who studied as undergrads.
You can do a course in museum studies, of course, but my idea was I didn't want to learn how to be a museum curator. I wanted to learn how to investigate historic textiles.
Right.
And there just wasn't a program. So, I mean, I contemplated when we came back from St. Croix, I contemplated applying again and working on my PhD, because it's something that's always bothered me, because I have a scholarly bent.
Mm-hmm.
And that I didn't pursue scholarship. It kind of, niggles at me.
There's always room for that.
But then it begs the question, well, why? Why would you do that? Why would you
ask Sir Edmund Hillary?
Yeah,
He had a
exactly.
famous answer.
Because it's there. Yeah, but I mean, it's a lot of time and energy, and to what end, and we do have this programming that education is supposed to get something for you.
Yeah, it's an investment. It's an investment
Yeah.
in your future. It's never just because
Well,
it is there and because it fascinates you and because the answering the question is worthwhile. That can't possibly be true. You have to be able to
yeah.
monetize it somehow.
I mean, I would have absolutely loved to have just been able to go and geek with people who were passionate about what I was passionate about. So,
Sure.
but I mean, even with the PhD that I was pursuing, it was still not about the textiles. It was about material culture. So,
right.
601. And, but yeah, so I mean, I chose instead to build a business. And it's a different path, it has different goals. But when it comes right down to it, what do I want to do? I really want to sit around and look at ancient textiles and study them and document them, and then tell people about them.
Yeah.
Like, if I could make my living just doing that, that's what I would be doing.
Yeah, I think, and I
But,
think that's
you all needed a pattern.
yeah. Well, in a way though, when it just thought just occurred to me, and I'm gonna pursue it, and it may end up being worthwhile. It may end up being a pile of poop. I don't know. Let me get through it. In a way, in a very real way, there's not a whole lot of difference. Like we make a big deal of this whole thing with the podcast we're recording now. We want to, you know, parse the differences between academia and business, but really, when you boil all the bullshit off of it, the way academics have to pursue funding,
Oh, yeah.
it's the same thing. The difference
Yeah,
is you're writing, rather than writing a 20-page grant request and getting a relatively, compared to what we get per work now, a relatively large sum of money to support you while you do this work. You're doing the work and then creating a product based upon the work that ends up doing the same thing, performing the same function. And you don't have to, teach undergraduates.
yeah, it's not untrue. I mean, the reality is that, you can get a PhD in anything.
Hmm.
You you don't get a PhD in subject.
Right.
You get a PhD, your thesis title,
Yeah.
your thesis is what your specialty is. And and that could be about anything. But if you want to teach in a university setting, you have to teach something that's marketable
Yeah.
to university students. And if you want to publish, you have to publish something that's marketable.
Yeah.
So I mean, it all gets ugly. There is no study for study's sake. There is no, let's just look at a thing and discuss the thing because it's interesting. There's
Yeah.
always oh, let's do something that corporate America is interested in. I remember because I was in communication studies, the most popular area of communication studies was, um, small group communication and corporate communication. So, we studied these groups in companies that just didn't work well with each other because all of the personal dynamics didn't work, and there were, jerks fighting with other jerks in the organization, and manipulating people and all this kind of horseshit. And I hated it. I was just, I don't want to do that. I don't want to
Right.
talk about it. I don't want to study it. I want to go over here and do something with what it means that you wear this kind of clothing.
Right. Right.
And no one cares about that. No one cares. And now we care a little bit more, but it's
Yeah.
still not, I would not have gotten a job talking about what I wanted to talk about. I still would have had to, like, basically, what did I do? I mean, what are patterns but self-published booklets?
Yeah. Really.
Uh, and I always say, I write the instructions for you. I write the historical notes for me
Hmm.
because that's what I'm there for.
Yeah.
I'm there to write the historical notes. I'm there to do the research and to find out the thing and
Yeah. Those
to tell you about
essays. Those essays are the result of your detective work,
yeah. And, if you don't
explaining the artifact in the context, in the social context and historical context.
yeah, and if I could have made a living just doing that, I would have done it, but everybody wanted a pattern, so I was like, "Okay, here's a pattern, but you're gonna have my damn historical notes too. I don't care what you do with them when you get them, but I'm putting them in there."
In a way, that's kind of better than a museum job because, for you, your joy is writing the little thing that gets stuck up next to the painting
Yeah.
that never really makes it into the coffee table book.
Yeah,
So in a way,
and
you're kind
honestly
of forcing people to buy your little placard of notes,
I could
you know.
I I would be such shit in a museum job. I'm so bad with hierarchy. I am
Yeah,
so bad with hierarchy.
ask me. Ask me.
Uh,
Go ahead.
I
Just
whenever
ask.
when there's a, you don't even know what you're talking about.
You have a problem
Whenever
with
there's,
hierarchy. You
yeah, whenever there's hierarchy involved, I just wanna kick it all down, I mean,
that see
and
that
that's just,
would have been your PhD thesis, something along the lines of, the cultural the cultural impact of Doc Marten boots, jeans with zippers on, and spiked mohawks
yeah,
in youthful counterculture and music or some shit like that. You'd have
right.
gone what you'd have done a Gorillas in the Mist thing with punks.
I'd, like, spike my hair
Yeah.
and be one of them. I could kinda do like that.
But yeah, that's it.
But, yeah,
The
it's,
Jane Goodall of the punk music scene.
yeah, right. Yeah, but yeah, it's just, it's of limited value, academically. So,
Yeah,
and now it's kind of funny you say this now, and there's all of these museums having textile departments and all of these universities having programs, and I look at it and go, where the hell were you 20 years ago, 30
yeah,
years ago? 30 years ago. They weren't there. They
yeah.
weren't there.
But the
It
parallel
was,
track that you followed has served you well.
yeah,
Has certainly served has served our public well.
yeah. Well, I mean, it let me, it let me teach in another way.
Yeah.
You know, it let me, I think I would have been more bitter at this point in my life if I had been in academia.
Oh, very likely.
I think just the machine of academia would have beaten me down
Yeah.
too much. I probably wouldn't still be in academia. I probably would have found something else. Um, because yeah, we get back to the hierarchy. No, 13 years of Catholic school really, really put me off hierarchy. I'm just no good at that. So, so yeah, I mean, that's it. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, that is a very detailed description of the path you chose and why you chose it. And it's interesting that it, we could go on for another couple of hours probably about this balderdash notion that everything you study must be marketable or salable in some way,
Yeah.
but we won't because that gets a little too ranty and boring, and we'll end up
Well,
repeating ourselves over and over.
yeah, it's just, that's it. You just said the whole argument. There's this idea that everything must be marketable, and you're gonna bang your head against that.
Yeah,
You know,
that whole
that's
publish
it.
or perish thing, where yet
Hmm.
we're pursuing it commercially like you've done on the scale you've done,
Hmm.
allows you to pursue the things you enjoy pursuing at your own pace, right? So you can switch and you can switch. Okay, I'm kind of done with 1550s England. Let's do 1930s USA. You know,
Well, yeah, and you know very well that, yeah, I do take suggestions from people, but I don't do anything I don't like. You
right?
know, I
Yeah,
mean, there have been a couple things that people have suggested to me that I just went, no, not interested. You know,
yeah.
um,
There's that one. But let me see if I can remember it. It starts with a V and ends with an iking.
no, I mean, to be
People have been
fair,
pushing you for that for literally 15 years.
I would have done it had the research shown me anything that I could have substantiated.
Yeah,
It's paper thin, and I'm not going to go out there giving people a pattern for a garment that I know was invented in the 20th century.
Yeah, and it's a matter of you can't go and pull it out of a drawer like you can the Moy gown or the Killary coat or something like that. You can't.
No, and all those people go, oh, Hedeby, there's a piece in Hedeby. Yeah, it's this big. It's
Yeah,
this big. It's that. It's like that.
the Hedeby dish towel. But let's
Yeah,
let's not create too much controversy here.
and
I mean,
and it's just if you think you know what that is,
yeah,
that wasn't found on a person.
yeah. It's
It's just I cannot lie. I cannot say that is evidence of something
yeah.
that I can't prove.
And while there's a certain amount of supposition that goes into a lot of what you do, a certain amount of chain of logic,
You
there's
can go from here to here.
yeah,
You can't go from here to there.
yeah. It's that there's a gap that you choose not to jump across, and I don't blame you for that. Everyone has
It's,
that gap.
I, even though it's not one of my time periods that I love, I still have to do justice to it. And
Yeah,
I just can't say this existed if I can't prove it.
yeah,
And the only thing I can prove is that some people made a wild ass guess
yeah,
and some other people took that as fact.
yeah. But yeah,
No,
I mean, like
that is bad.
I was saying, there's supposition in things because it's not like there are any extant lenta,
Yep.
and it's not like we have extremely detailed photorealistic images of lenta in like paintings or engravings or stuff like that. So you have to make some leaps, but those
But
leaps are nowhere near as large.
and when you've spoken to the person who invented the drawstring sleeves,
Yeah,
and she tells you, "Oh, I did it because this character needed to keep her sleeves out of the water,
yeah,
so I made these drawstrings so that she could pull her sleeves up, and it had nothing to do with
yeah.
it
I did
being a
that in
length."
1978 or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah.
You know.
And when you talk to her and she goes, "Oh no, I made that up," then somebody else who's going, "Oh no, the 16th century Irish had drawstrings." You go, "No, this woman invented it, and
Yeah.
she knows she did."
Well,
And
that once people get married to preconceptions, they tend to cling to them irrespective of
uh,
caution.
it's ridiculous. No, I just had this argument with somebody, and I thought I shouted down. I mean, that one of the very first things I did was track down the invention of drawstring sleeves and find out where it came from and why it was being associated with Ireland and all this kind of stuff. And because I couldn't find it anywhere in the literature, in the pictorial record, in the extant record. And, I wrote some of my first stuff about that because
Yeah,
I did the investigation and I found out where it came from. And I found out, I personally talked to the person who invented it, and we figured out why it started being associated with Irish character. It was an
yeah,
Irish character affair. And I that was in the 90s, and I just had to have the argument again with somebody who was telling me, "Oh no, but I can see it in this picture." I'm like, you can't see it in that picture.
yeah,
You want it to exist, so you are imagining it is in
yeah.
that picture because you want it to exist so badly.
Yep.
If you cannot look at a picture with a preconceived notion of what you're seeing. You have to look at it purely. You can't put what you want there.
There's a certain amount of, for lack of a better term, naivete that you have to force yourself to engage in when you
Yeah, well,
examine any kind
you
of evidence.
you have to approach it objectively.
Yeah.
You have to say, here's a clean slate, and
Hmm.
I'm going to go, and you may have something you want to prove,
Hmm.
but you can't just say, oh, it's there and I see it. You're delusional. It's there
Yeah.
and I see it. No, you don't see it. I mean, this is like we were talking about this whole thing. And oh, well, look at these. Here are these brass rubbings, and we see it in the brass rubbings. I'm like, I don't even see a human in the brass rubbings.
Yeah.
I mean, I see that's an elephant, as far as I can tell. That's not a human. And not that there were elephants in 6th century Denmark, but
Yeah, it's but
but
anyway,
yeah,
the point is we went off on a pretty wild tangent there. The point is
the
you do.
point is that we see the man in the moon. We see the man in the moon. We know there's no man. There's no face on
I'm
the
going back
moon.
further than that, but
All right.
I was going to say the thing that triggered all this was me saying that you study that which interests you,
Yes.
and that which and that led into that which you can reasonably prove.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like you can't wave something under my nose and get me interested in it. I
Yeah,
mean, the Jupan and Kantush were like that.
yeah.
I had no interest in
Thanks, Rick Orley.
Polish.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah. Um, I had no interest in that. And it wasn't Rick Orley. It
Wasn't it?
was, oh, no, it wasn't Rick Orley who asked me to do the research. It was this other guy
I
from New
thought he
Jersey.
handed you a stack of
Yeah.
books.
It
Oh,
wasn't, he didn't. It was this other guy who, oh, I'm going to have to find his name. I'm going to find his name and I'm going to put it in the show notes because I can't remember, but I know I must have thanked it. I thanked him in the
yeah, I'm sure you
patterns. I
did.
haven't seen him in years, 20 years. But yeah, he said, oh, would you do this? And handed me all this information. And I wouldn't have done it if I didn't find it interesting,
Yeah,
you know?
I think
So,
yeah. Yes, you have to find it interesting. It has to be something that you can defend,
yeah.
because one statement that you and I share is you are not entitled to your opinion. You're only entitled to those opinions which you can successfully defend.
Mhm.
So
No,
you have to be able to do
and
that.
but just to shout out to Rick Orley. Rick Orley was really instrumental in me actually producing the patterns because this was back before we printed our own.
Oh
So I
yeah,
had
that's
to
right.
pay for a production run.
Yeah,
And I was just like, I got 5 guys who want to buy these. That's not enough for me to
yeah,
print them. And Rick was just like, I'll pay you for this many.
yeah.
Just finish them. And I was like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to finish them. He's like, it doesn't matter. Here. So
As I
so he
recall,
kind
he said to you at an event once, "I am so sick." Like he virtually grabbed you by the lapels and said, "I am so sick of people pestering me
yeah.
to either make them stuff or help them make stuff. You must do this."
Yeah. Yeah. So, it was they got me interested in it. And then they gave me an award from the Czestochowa Society. Our
Oh
Lady of
yeah,
Chest
yeah,
in Philadelphia gave me an award. They gave me the Polish laurels
yeah,
of the
yeah,
year. Yeah, and I have this little plaque that
yep,
says that I have laurels from the Our Lady of Czestochowa Society, Polish American Society in Philadelphia, and it came with a check. So
yeah.
it
Nice big fat check, as I recall.
was nice. I mean,
Not
it
like
was
the
not.
Nobel Prize, but
It wasn't the Nobel Prize, but it was like they hand you a check and you went, "This is okay."
this does not suck.
I mean, and
I can have
and
a
it
meat
was
meal this Tuesday.
yeah, right. And it was I mean, and I sell a lot of Polish patterns.
Yeah,
I've sold Polish patterns to Poland now,
yeah.
which is blows my mind.
It's
It
always
blows
lovely, isn't
my
it?
mind.
And that's a thing you wouldn't get out of academia, I think, too. That
Yeah.
trying to bring the trying to stay on topic. It you wouldn't get the satisfaction of people in Germany buying your Landsknecht patterns, people
Which they
in which they have, people in
have.
Poland buying your
People in
17th
Ireland
century.
inspiring my Irish patterns.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's people in Turkey buying my Turkish patterns. That gets me. I'm like,
It's
you're buying my
brilliant.
Turkish patterns. They're in the museum in your Istanbul, and you're buying them from me.
Well, I mean, the stuff, the Irish patterns. What done started all this nonsense. Ireland is smaller than Turkey,
Yeah.
and everyone knows each other because
Hmm.
there's only about, I don't know, 18 people who live in Ireland. So it's,
Right. 18 people.
call your Margaret over there. She works over there in all the dusty stuff. She'll let you go and look at it.
It's true. It's true.
And but do they no? What do? They rely on the work of a Yank,
Yeah.
and it's
Well,
but it's that's what I'm saying is there's a feeling that I think you probably wouldn't get out of academia from that, because it's one thing to know that people value your work. It's another thing when there's cash money involved in people valuing your work.
well, yes,
It's
yes
an
and
immediate
no.
metric, is what I'm saying.
It is an immediate metric, and I think that in a perfect world, you wouldn't need that. And in a perfect world, there would be Dr. Cass McGann knows about this thing. Let's go ask her.
Yeah,
And that would be terrific. But that's not how it works,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So having a order for Polish patterns from Krakow
Pretty
is
cool.
I crowed about it. As I remember, I crowed. I think put it on the internet
You very
and went, see.
caw. So I think that pretty much wraps up that topic. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're
Yep.
considering an academic route in um, in material culture curation, those routes are out there now.
Yep.
But
And
it's
I'm in no way intending to discourage anyone from that route, because if I had to do it all again, I might do that.
oh, but you're I think you've outlined a bunch of information so that people can make a more informed choice if that's what they want
Mhm.
to do.
There are
And
there are reasons there are reasons to do it, and there are reasons to do something else.
yeah, yeah, that's true. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up then. If you're listening to this on your podcast provider of choice, leave us a rating, leave us a review. I have been crowing for recent weeks about, if you leave a review, leave us a 5-star review, and I'll pick one at random and read it live on the podcast, no matter what it says. But I completely forgot to go to our podcasting sources and look for one today. So um, it'll it'll come, I promise. But I have to disengage dipshit mode, and yeah, that's that. And if you're so, we'll leave that. That's done. That's said, and that I cannot say it anymore now. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to do the whole like, subscribe, ring the little bell that's down there that notifies you when we post a new vlog. If there's anything you want us to talk about, you'd like to hear us blither about, you can shoot us an email, info@reconstructinghistory.com, or leave a comment on whatever means by which you have received this information. I think that is about it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I have some new videos coming up, the Wednesday videos. They're going to post
Oh,
every
good,
Wednesday.
good.
I've finally gotten myself in gear and recorded a bunch of them today, so I'm editing those, and we'll be putting those up for the next few weeks. So um, ring the bell
Yeah,
so that you get notifications that they upload, and let me know what you think. Let me
yeah.
know what you'd like to hear. Um,
We
I mean,
don't know what to
obviously,
talk about if you don't tell us what you like.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, obviously, we have a whole list of things we want to talk about that we want to do together, but we're not in the same continent. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of just holding up the tent poles by myself
Once all
for a bit.
this virus nonsense ends and we are reunited, There'll be more.
Yes.
There'll be more stuff.
Yeah, we've got a list. We've got a huge list.
Yeah, a
So I'm just going through
post-COVID list.
yeah, I'm just going through and doing the things that I can do on my own. So let me know if there's anything that you want to hear. But keep an eye out, podcast on Mondays and other videos on Wednesdays.
Yep.
So subscribe, and
all that kind of thing, and we'll talk to you next time.
bye.
Bye.